Welcome back for the second and final segment on the history of Manhattanville as an educational institution. In 1952, through the process of eminent domain, Manhattanville was required to leave their beloved campus in Manhattan to accommodate the expanding City College of New York. To learn more about this chapter in detail, watch the video Manhattanville Campus History Part 3. After years of court proceedings and 16 months of construction, the campus was ready to welcome students in October 1952. As friends and neighbors learned of the move, they reached out to President Eleanor O'Byrne. One letter in particular saved in the archives is from Lester Granger, the director of the National Urban League and a civil rights advocate. He writes, "Mrs. Granger and I have enjoyed many pleasant evenings and other social occasions at Manhattanville. Our feeling has been that of our other friends with whom we have shared our experiences, that if more individuals and institutions would take the pace that has been taken by Manhattanville College under your leadership to extend friendship to those around them, this would be a much happier city and country in which to live." While devastated to leave, the move to purchase allowed Manhattanville to expand their student body and meet the baby boom generation as they entered college. The student body quickly grew to over 1,200 graduates. In 1957, Spelman Hall was completed and named for Francis Cardinal Spelman, who helped fundraising efforts. That same year, the Kennedy Gym was completed with a donation from the Kennedy family. Several Kennedy women attended the academy and college over the years. Ted Kennedy even met his wife, Joan, while she was a student at the gym dedication ceremony in October of 1957. The Kennedy family's relationship with Manhattanville was close during this era. After President Kennedy's assassination, Manhattanville volunteered to respond to the condolence letters his wife Jacqueline received from around the world. Knowing Manhattanville students spoke many different languages, they were tasked with responding to international messages. Over the course of 8 weeks, they responded to over 40,000 letters. When just 5 years later, his brother Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated while running for president in 1968, members of Manhattanville's Pius X School of Liturgical Music performed Gregorian chant at his funeral at St. Patrick's Cathedral. A quick sidebar about this music program. Pius X was a world-renowned music school that taught Gregorian chant, the only one in the world to teach both men and women. In 1959, Manhattanville was contacted by Rodgers and Hammerstein, who were writing The Sound of Music for Broadway. Producers consulted with Manhattanville about sacred music and what a choir of nuns would sound like. They also asked about costumes and the hierarchy in religious orders. Images seen here on the left are from a production visit that summer. During the 1964 World's Fair, the Pius X Choir recorded music that was piped into the Vatican Pavilion as 14 million visitors viewed Michelangelo's Pietà. There was concern that taking the students out of the very city that inspired their activism would cause them to lose their interest. However, the opposite was true. As the civil rights movement gained momentum during the 1960s, so did Manhattanville students. Manhattanville was selected as the head of the Social Action Secretariat for the entire NFCCS, an organization with over 100 schools around the country. The Social Action Secretariat created a series of guides called Discrimination Today in the USA, covering education, housing, employment, student action, ethics, and religion. In a pre-internet world, they distributed current events, judicial decisions, demonstrations, and helpful resources to campuses around the country. Every semester, Manhattanville hosted a social action weekend, a weekend of guest lectures, discussions, panels, and film screenings focusing on student action and civil rights. Students participated in lunch counter sit-ins in Baltimore. They joined the March on Washington in August 1963 and witnessed Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. While many colleges had students participating in the civil rights movement, Manhattanville was rare in allowing students to carry its banner, as you can see in the image on the right. These students were led by faculty mentor Sister Mary T. Clark. Sister Clark witnessed Mother Damon's 1938 Principles versus Prejudices speech from the audience as a student. She entered the Society of the Sacred Heart and earned a PhD in philosophy. In 1966, Sister Clark collected and expanded the Secretariat's work into a book entitled Discrimination Today, Guidelines for Civic Action. Sister Clark taught and lived at Manhattanville into the 2010s. Here you can see her at her 70th college reunion in 2009 and at her 100th birthday celebration at the castle. She passed away just shy of her 101st birthday. The Sister Clark Center for Religion and Social Justice is named in honor of her lifelong commitment to service. The late 1960s was a time of rapid change across the United States, and Manhattanville was no exception. America was grappling with the Vietnam War, hippies, rock and roll, men with long hair, and women wearing pants. Higher education as a whole was evolving, opening its doors wider, going co-ed, transforming its curriculum, and Manhattanville in 1966 was at a crossroads. Another Manhattanville alum would guide the community through the next several years of upheaval. Her name was Elizabeth McCormick, and she had graduated in 1944. She entered the Religious of the Sacred Heart, and in 1966 became Manhattanville president. She once wrote, "Do not be beguiled into assuming we give and receive. Instead, we meet and change one another." One of the very first changes of her presidency was removing the words "of the Sacred Heart" from the college's official name. Now it was simply Manhattanville College. Elizabeth McCormick was president in December 1969 when 18 students of color released a list of demands and occupied Brownson Hall for 6 days. These students were joining a nationwide movement seeking more representation for students of color in the curriculum, student body, faculty, and administrations of colleges and universities. The week of the takeover, the Manhattanville community reflected the times. Hundreds of students gathered on the quad in solidarity. Hundreds of other students also signed a petition opposing the takeover. Unlike other campus protests at the time where police arrested the participants, Elizabeth McCormick vowed to solve this as a community. Students and faculty sought solutions in late-night meetings and teach-ins. One evening, 130 students slept in the West Room in solidarity. Elizabeth McCormick herself climbed through a window of Brownson and met with the occupying students several times. The students left the building when a minor in African American Studies was approved by the faculty. The changes kept coming. In 1971, Manhattanville admitted their first coeducational freshman class. At the same time, the college also redesigned the curriculum with funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities. The Manhattanville Plan resulted in many innovations. The first-year program we know today has its roots in this study over 50 years ago. The most painful change for Manhattanville came in the moving away from its Catholic identity. While technically the college had never been officially Catholic, in so many ways the RSCJs and the Catholic faith defined the school. By the late 1960s, crucifixes were moved out of the classrooms, religious instruction was not required, and the nuns no longer wore their habits. However, many alumni and others were disappointed, feeling that this was no longer the school that they knew and loved. Elizabeth McCormick was clear. In her eyes, it was change or close. Out of these years of rapid change, the Manhattanville identity we know today developed. One of those is the Valiant mascot. Before men's teams arrived, athletics teams were first known as the Manhattanvillians, and then shortened to Villains. According to legend, in winter 1974, the men's basketball team, under Coach Tim Cohane Jr., was losing a game. Coach Cohane's father, Tim Cohane Sr., a sports writer, was at this game and thought of the 15th century quote to motivate the players, "To the valiant of heart, nothing is impossible." The team came back to win and were known as the Valiants from that point on. For a few years, all men's teams were the Valiants and women's teams were still the Villains. By 1978, all teams went by the Valiant moniker. Another tradition, Quad Jam, was first held in 1980. It was started by students who wanted to enjoy music and fun outdoors to celebrate the end of the school year. The first 2 years were held on the Damon Quad. In 1982, it moved to the main quad. It has been a signature Manhattanville experience for over 40 years. Another spring semester tradition is the International Bazaar. We can trace celebrations like this to the 1950s. Today, the International Bazaar is an evening celebrating all the different cultures that make up our community with food and performances. In the fall semester, the big event is Red Madness, which first started in the late 1990s. It's an evening of school spirit and entertaining dance routines from our athletics teams. As the 1970s and 80s unfolded, Manhattanville experienced a student population decline. This was due to a few factors. The number of college students had dropped, the number of colleges had increased, and because Manhattanville was no longer a women's Catholic college, Many of the automatic applicants no longer applied. Some of how Manhattanville managed was by expanding graduate degree offerings. The first graduate students were in the Masters of Education program, which began in 1965. Over time, more and more graduate programs launched, expanding the college's impact. In 2010, the School of Education added its first doctoral program with the Doctorate in Education Leadership. For its entire history, Manhattanville's mission has been consistent: to educate and help others. However, in 1999, the Board of Trustees formally adopted a mission statement, which built upon decades of work. It reads, "Manhattanville educates students to become ethically and socially responsible leaders for the global community." Another way Manhattanville reflected the time and grew its student body was through athletics, adding many new teams through the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s. This included baseball, cross country, golf, hockey, and rugby, among others. Athletics would be the place where Manhattanville's commitment to student action and free speech was tested in March of 2003. It had been just a year and a half since 9/11, and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were underway. Manhattanville student Tony Smith was a member of the women's basketball team. Tony began turning her back to the flag during the national anthem at the start of the games. She believed racial and economic disparities here in the U.S. were being ignored in lieu of wars overseas. People on campus and off were divided. It made national news and attracted vitriolic responses from people around the country. Throughout that year, the Manhattanville administration consistently defended Tony's right to her protest. In May 2022, Tony Smith Thompson returned to campus to deliver the commencement address and receive an honorary doctorate for her activism. During her address, she urged students to preserve their history and experience at Manhattanville. And I quote, "I ask each of you to create some sort of time capsule of your time here, of these pivotal years that you can leave for the archives, so that your time here is woven into the history of this school for the students who come after you." Recent history has seen Manhattanville continue to increase the types of programs it offers to accommodate a new generation of students. For instance, in 2019, the School of Nursing and Health Sciences was added. In 2021, they welcomed radiologic technology. Manhattanville underwent an exciting change recently when in 2024 it became Manhattanville University. Becoming a university recognizes the scope of our academic offerings, which today includes over 55 undergraduate programs and more than 70 graduate and doctoral programs. The story of Manhattanville has been one of constant change and evolution, while at the same time cherishing traditions and our mission of service. The next chapter of history is yet unwritten. You are now part of that story, and the Archives looks forward to gathering and preserving it for the future.